Now that you know everything there is to know about equations of lines, we're going to move on and talk about functions and then eventually move into domain and range of various graphs. So the first thing that you really need to know is, what is a function? Well, a function is a special relationship where, how do we want to put this? Inputs and outputs. Let's say where the input or the x values only match one output. Or y value. In other words, we would say the x's cannot repeat. So there are several ways to determine a function, and there's several ways to show a relationship. So if we're looking at, let's say, a set of points, the first thing that we would need to be able to do would be to pick out the domain. And again, the domain are the x's, and they need to be written from least to greatest. So if I look at -3, 1, -2, 0, 1, 2, 3, -4, and then -3, 5, all of the domains would be the first numbers. So we would be looking at the -3, the -2, the 1, the 3, and the -3. Those are going to be our domain. So we would want to put them in order from least to greatest. So the lowest number is -3, so I would put that first. But notice there's more than one of them, but we only have to write it once. Then the next number would be -2. Then the next number would be 1, and then the highest one would be 3. And then we would do the same thing with the range. The range is always going to be our y values. So the y values are the second numbers in all of the ordered pairs. And again, we would want to write them from least to greatest. So the lowest one is -4. Then we would go to 0, and then 1, and then 2, and then 5. So that would be your domain and range if they gave you a set of points. And then we could take that set of points and we could represent the relationship in a different way in a table. So again, the x's need to go in order. So we would do -3, 1, and then our -3, 5. And those two, it doesn't really matter. Then the next one should be our point that starts with -2. So then -2, 0. And then 1, 2. And then 3, -4. Now notice in this case, the x's do stay in order, but the y's end up out of order. And that's okay. In this case, you always want the x's to be from least to greatest. Another way to represent a relationship is called mapping. That's where these are the x's and these are the y's. Again, they're written from least to greatest. So the x's, we would have -3, -2, 1, and 3, just like we have them written in our domain, and we don't repeat if they repeat. Then the y's are -4, 0, 1, 2, and 5. And then to make ordered pairs, we draw lines. So we're supposed to go from -3 to 1. So I would draw a line from -3 to 1. Then I'm supposed to go from -3 to 5. So I would go from -3 to 5. then -2, 0, 1, 2, and 3, -4. So if they gave us something in mapping, all we have to do is rewrite those as ordered pairs like this, or put them in a table. And then the last way to show the relationship of any function is to graph. So if I do -3 and then 1, I would put a point. I have -3 and then 5 and put a point. I have -2, 0, 1, 2, and then 3, -4. Now, if you notice, these points do not create a line like we're used to, and that's okay. This is considered a scatter plot or a discrete graph because it's just going to be random dots. So now, no matter which situation, test whether or not the relationship would be a function. Well, remember, the x's cannot repeat. So if I'm given a set of points in, say, this format, or this format, or this format, what I want to make sure of is that the x's do not repeat. So again, we're looking at the domain. If they do repeat, we would say they are not a function. If they do not repeat, then we would say this is a function. So if we look at this specific situation, we have a -3 and a -3. It repeats, so this is not a function. Or we have a -3 and a -3, so it repeats, so it's not a function. Or here we see two lines coming from the same x value, so we would say it repeats, so this is not a function. Then what do we do if we're given a graph? Well, then we're going to do the vertical line test. If it fails the vertical line test, then it is not a function. And this is going to be if we touch 2 points. And I'm about to show you what that looks like. If it passes the vertical line test, then it is a function. So let's look at the graph that they gave us. Okay? This is what I'm going to use as a vertical line. And if I put it on like this and I slide it across to this point right here, notice I only touch 1 point. If I slide it to the next one, I still only touch 1 point. If I slide it here to this third one, I only touch 1 point. But then if I slide it right here to this, notice I touch 2 points. I touch one here and one right here. They're on the same vertical line. That means that it fails the vertical line test, and that means this is not a function. Okay? So try to use that information and see if you can do A, B, C, and D, and then the 3 at the bottom.